if I lay down and I play dead and I stay.
Welcome back, K-pop lovers. This is the place where your heart beats to the beat of your idols. Lumen K-pop, home to incredible stories and emotional moments from the never-ending world of K-pop. Today, we bring you a moment that has been awaited for over 2 years. A moment that not only shook the music industry, but also resonated in the hearts of ARMYs all over the world. Get ready, because this story will give you goosebumps, smiles, and maybe even tears.
With you, I don't ever feel calm.
The new dawn greeted Yeoncheon in an unusual way. Mist covered the sky with an almost sacred silence, as if it knew that this was no ordinary day. The birds chirped more slowly than usual, and the leaves swayed in silence. The military area, usually closed and cold, felt warm that day. Not because of the weather, but because of something, or rather 2 people, who were coming back. Not just physically, but as part of something bigger than themselves. Behind the military vehicles, 2 figures slowly stepped out. Their steps were unhurried, unnoticeable. But every second was filled with meaning. Each step marked the end of a difficult chapter, and the beginning of a long-awaited new story. Jimin and Jeon Jungkook. 2 names who had never really disappeared, but had not been fully present for more than a year. They had not left the world. They had left to fulfill a promise to their country. And that day they returned. Their faces were still wrapped in military uniforms. But their smiles, the way they looked around, the way they stood next to each other, it all spoke of home, of friends, of the journey that had changed them without erasing who they were. That morning, the sun peeked shyly through the fog, touched their shoulders, highlighting the flowers they held tightly. Not just decorations, but symbols of patience, devotion, and undying love. Jimin smiled slightly, his eyes slightly watery. Jungkook glanced at the camera, then smiled briefly before looking away. There were thousands of words hidden behind that little laugh, and only ARMY could read them. Soon, the world was shocked. Hashtags like #WelcomeBackJikook, #TheyAreHome, and #RMY Reunion filled the global trend. From Korea to Brazil, from New York to Jakarta, all celebrated the same thing: 2 hearts returning home. The media stood in rows. Cameras flashed. But none of them could truly capture the magic in the air at that moment. 'Cause the magic was invisible, it was felt. Cook didn't give a long speech. There were no formal statements, just small gestures, looking at each other, adjusting each other's flowers, laughing shyly. But that's where the magic lies. They spoke with their hearts, not microphones. Fan cams began to circulate. In one video, Jimin appeared to whisper something into Jungkook's ear. Though the words were inaudible, their facial expressions were clear: relief, happiness, and peace. Like best friends reuniting after being on the battlefield. Reports from fellow soldiers confirmed what fans had always known: they were inseparable. They persevered together, undergoing rigorous training, silently supporting each other. Even on lonely nights, they imagined the stage they would step on again. Jimin once said in an internal military conversation, "Every night I think, what if we sing our first song again?" And Jungkook replied, "I don't know, but I'll be standing by your side." It wasn't just a statement. It was a promise. A promise that no matter what, they would be back together. And that day, they kept it. The fans couldn't hold back their emotions. Many cried just because they heard their laughter. The voice that once cheered them on in their loneliness was back, and more real than ever. On social media, fans began uploading edited videos full of memories, from No More Dream to Still With You, from funny moments to tears on stage. Every second was a piece of history that now felt alive again. Some ARMYs even reprinted their favorite light sticks, posters, and lyrics. That day was like a festival without music, but full of vibrations of love that were invisible to the eye. What was extraordinary was how the outside world also took notice. International news portals called that day the gentle comeback. Not because they performed big, but because they returned with grace and honesty. One thing that couldn't be ignored was their friendship. Not just fellow members, but friends who grew up together from adolescence to adulthood. They knew each other better than anyone else in the world. They came back not to surprise, but to touch. They didn't come with a new project. They came with a presence, and that presence was enough to fill the empty space that had been left behind. TYBE, their agency, didn't make any big announcements, but a few staff members stood in the back row, smiling and giving each other warm hugs. It wasn't a promotion. It was a family welcoming their members home. Fellow idols and actors sent messages, not out of obligation but out of respect. In a fast-paced, high-pressure world, these two young men proved that true strength lies in staying true to yourself. For ARMY, it wasn't an ordinary moment. It was a sign that the waiting was over. The days of replaying concert videos could now be replaced by the hope of a new concert. And for those who stayed, it was the most beautiful form of reciprocation. Repayment for loyalty. For the silent prayers that were said. For the tears that no one saw. Jimin and Jungkook stood in the same place, but they had changed. They were more mature, more composed. But the light in their eyes remained the same. The light ARMY had recognized since the first day they met BTS. They hadn't lost who they were during their military service. Instead, they've rediscovered the deepest parts of themselves, and now they're bringing them to the world. That night, many fans had trouble sleeping. Not because they were sad, but because their hearts were full. Too full of an inexplicable feeling. The feeling that something long lost had returned. What comes next is a mystery. Maybe a world tour. Maybe a special album. Maybe just a break for them. But one thing is for sure, the world is ready to welcome them back with open arms. 'Cause when Jimin and Jungkook smile, the world smiles. When they laugh, the world feels alive. And when they come home, the world feels like home again. And in their return, there's a message that no matter how far one goes, there's always a way back. There's always a stage to light up again. There's always an ARMY waiting. Jikook isn't just back as an artist. They're back as a symbol. A symbol that in a world that's changing fast, there's still something that remains. The love between an idol and their fan. They once sang about a dream. Now they're bringing that dream back to life and sharing it with us all once again. This story isn't just theirs. It's ours. Every tear, every laugh, every heartbeat as we watch the screen, it's all part of this bigger story. And as we stare at the screen, watching those two figures laugh like they used to, we know BTS has a long future ahead of them. And we'll walk beside them just like they did then, now and forever. Welcome back, Jimin and Jungkook. The world has changed while you were gone. But now you're back and everything feels right again. Let's light up the stage together, brighter, warmer.
Sitting there gaslighting and confusing. Was it me?